Hey everyone, it's Lindsay, and I am here with you today on the Imagine channel to share with you some plaid stamping. I love to do plaid stamping, and one of my favorite stamp sets to use is the Plaid Play stamp set from Waffle Flower. It has all these great solid line stamps, but it also has those dashed lines, which I absolutely love to add in to my plaid. Now for my colors today, I'm using Pear Tart, Tangelo, and Dandelion. These are all Memento Dewdrop ink pads, which come in really handy because you can get a lot of colors for such a small amount of money. So you can really add some fun colors, do some fun color combinations on these backgrounds, and have a lot of fun playing around. So I'm starting off with a full sheet of cardstock, or a full A2 size panel here. This is 4¼ by 5½, and I am putting it in my MISTI with the creative corners up top. I find this super helpful in doing any plaid stamping. I'm starting off with the largest, the thickest solid stamp from that Plaid Play stamp set. And I'm going to stamp these across the panel about an inch apart each time I stamp this. Now again, I'm using my MISTI so I can do a double stamping of each one of these. I want a really solid line when I do this, so that's why I'm using my MISTI. Plus, I feel like it helps me get the lines a little bit straighter than I would if I was just eyeballing it. So each one of these lines, again, I'm going to double stamp, and I'll continue to do that all the way up to the top of the cardstock. Then I am going to flip it horizontally and start stamping across that way. So these are going to cross along each other. And again, I will do the same technique here. Put this stamp down, pick it up with the lid of my MISTI once I feel like I have it straight enough, and then I will go ahead and double stamp it down with that Tangelo ink. Now I'm starting off with the Tangelo ink because that is what I want the most color of. So whatever color that you want more prominent, make sure you use that with your biggest stamp. So make sure you have a little bit of an idea of where you want this panel to go. Now once I have that stamped, it's time to move on to my next stamp. I am going to go with not the thinnest, but next to the thinnest. And I'll go ahead and place that in between my two orange stamps. So I'm going vertically here, and I'll just go ahead and position that between two of the vertical orange stripes. Make sure it's nice and straight, and then pick it up with the lid of my MISTI. You can see this is a well-loved stamp set. These are a little hard to see through. I've used them so many times, but that's okay. I'll just keep going, and this is again why I'm using my MISTI for this today. For this stripe, I'm going to go ahead and use my Dandelion ink, and again, double stamping this to make sure I have a nice solid line. I'll stamp that across in between each one of the orange stripes. Then I'll go ahead and turn my panel and start stamping across the other stripes going the opposite way. So I went ahead and turned my panel 90 degrees, and now I'm stamping in between each one of those orange stripes, double stamping again using that same Dandelion ink and the second from the thinnest stripe in the stamp set. Now it's time to go on to my final stripe. This is the thinnest line stamp in the stamp set, and I'm going to position it between the orange and the yellow stripe. Then I'll go ahead and pick it up with the lid of my MISTI and stamp this down with the Pear Tart ink. Now this is a super thin stripe. I love the way it looks. And each time I stamp this, I want to make sure that I'm stamping between a yellow and an orange line. So you're going to have a few more of these than you did with any of the other stamps that you stamped out, because you're stamping in between each one of the yellow and the orange stripes. Once I have them all stamped out going one way, I'm going to flip my panel 90 degrees and start stamping the other way. Now, once that is done, you have this gorgeous plaid background. I did mine straight across, but you can do these at an angle. You can do these wonky a little bit if you want to. It really is a lot of fun to play with the orientation, the different stripe patterns. But when I do panels like this, they take a while to do. So what I like to do is actually cut them in half. That way I get two cards for just one panel. You can leave them whole, they make great backgrounds, but I feel like cutting them up a little bit really gets me a lot further with all the time I spend on making those. So now it's time to create two different cards, and I'm going to go ahead and go in with the Stitch Cacti stamp set from Waffle Flower and create some little stamp panels. I've die cut an oval. This is a zigzag oval from Cat Scrappiness, and I'm stamping out my cacti. Now these are super easy to line up. It's a stamp layering stamp set. I stamped the first round of stitches with the pear tart, and then for a little dimension, I'll go ahead and stamp in the second layer with bamboo leaves. Like I said, these are super easy to line up. I'm using my Misty, but you definitely do not have to with these. They're very forgiving, and again, super easy to see through. Now once I have the top of the cactus stamped, it's time to go ahead and stamp its little holder. So I used the Tangelo ink for that. Finally, I'm adding my sentiment, which is from that same cacti stamp set, and I'm stamping hugs with some First Fine Clair Nocturne ink to finish off that panel. Now that all that was left to do was put these cards together. I popped up each panel with some foam tape, and I also added some foam tape along the top of the ovals and then glued the bottom of the ovals to that panel. So I've got a little bit of dimension going on. Each one is attached to an A2 top folding card base. This was a lot of fun to make, and I love the way they turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Happy crafting, everyone!